Winston Churchill measured his productivity in two currencies, words and bricks. Every morning at Chartwell, his country estate in Kent, Churchill would write speeches, articles, books, histories, biographies. The words poured out in his distinctive voice, rolling, rhetorical, relentless. He wrote because he needed the income. Chartwell cost a fortune to maintain, and his political career had stalled. Out of government in the late 1920s, Churchill faced what he called his wilderness years. Writing kept the estate running. But every afternoon, something changed. Churchill would put down his pen, change into work clothes, and walk into the gardens with bricks and mortar. He wasn't supervising construction. He was doing it himself. Loading bricks, mixing mortar, laying courses with practiced precision, building walls brick by brick until sunset made the work impossible. To visitors, it seemed eccentric. Britain's former Chancellor of the Exchequer, one of the nation's most prominent statesmen, working like a common laborer in his own garden. What they didn't understand was that Churchill wasn't playing at construction. He was fighting for his mental survival. Churchill called his depression the Black Dog, a darkness that followed him throughout his life, waiting to overwhelm him during periods of inactivity or political exile. The late 1920s brought both. Out of power, politically isolated, watching younger men shape policies he opposed, Churchill faced not just professional frustration, but psychological danger. Bricklaying became his defense. He didn't approach it casually. Churchill hired a local bricklayer named Mr. Inches to teach him proper technique. He studied the craft seriously, learning how to mix mortar to the right consistency, how to judge levels, how to tap bricks into precise alignment. He practiced until his movements became fluid. He worked until he could lay bricks at professional speeds. The physical labor served multiple purposes. It demanded focus that pulled his mind from circular political thoughts. It produced tangible results he could see and touch. Unlike political speeches that disappeared into air, or policies that took years to implement. Every wall represented hours of concentration, physical effort, and visible achievement. At the end of each day, Churchill could point to something he'd built with his own hands. He once joked to a friend, "I produce 2,000 words and 200 bricks a day." The line got laughs, but it was essentially accurate. Churchill maintained this dual productivity throughout his wilderness years. In the morning, he wrote volumes that would shape historical understanding and earn him the Nobel Prize in Literature. In the afternoon, he built structures that would stand for decades. In 1928, Churchill took an unusual step that revealed how seriously he viewed his craft. He applied for membership in the Amalgamated Union of Building Trade Workers. This was an honorary membership offered to a famous patron. Churchill genuinely wanted to join the union as a practicing bricklayer. The union accepted him. They issued Churchill a membership card. He kept it in his wallet for the rest of his life, reportedly showing it with pride to surprised acquaintances. For a conservative politician from an aristocratic family, carrying a Union card represented something more than political theater. It represented respect for the craft and identity as someone who did the work. The walls Churchill built still stand at Chartwell. You can visit them today. Solid brick structures showing varying levels of skill as he learned and improved. There's a cottage wall he built, garden walls separating different sections of the estate, a curved wall that required more sophisticated technique. Each structure represents not just construction, but therapy. Not just bricks, but battles fought quietly against his own mind. Churchill's colleagues in Parliament, debating policies that would shape empires, had no idea that their fellow statesman spent his afternoons covered in mortar dust, carefully aligning bricks with the absorption that only physical work can provide. They didn't understand that the man who would later rally Britain through its darkest hours was learning survival techniques in his own garden. The bricklaying served another purpose Churchill rarely articulated. In politics, results are ambiguous. You give a speech. Did it change minds? You propose policy. Will it work? You make alliances. Will they hold? Everything exists in uncertainty. But a wall either stands or it doesn't. A brick is either level or it isn't. The mortar either holds or it fails. Physical work provides clarity that political work never could. Churchill built through his wilderness years, brick by brick, maintaining his sanity through craftsmanship, while his political career seemed permanently stalled. He couldn't have known that within a decade, Britain would need exactly the qualities he was developing in those gardens. Resilience, determination, the ability to build something solid when everything seemed to be falling apart. When World War II began and Churchill returned to power, the bricklaying stopped. There was no time for gardens when the nation faced existential threat, but the discipline remained. The steadiness he'd practiced, laying brick after brick, translated to the steady leadership Britain desperately needed. Churchill returned to Chartwell and to his bricks when health permitted. He built until his body could no longer manage the physical demands. His final years at Chartwell were spent surrounded by walls he'd constructed decades earlier. Physical monuments to the quiet battle he'd fought and won. Those walls remain today, testament to something we often forget about historical giants. They were human. They struggled. They needed strategies to manage their own minds. They found salvation not just in grand gestures, but in simple, repetitive work that demanded presence and produced results they could see. Churchill fought battles on paper, crafting words that would inspire nations. He fought battles in Parliament, shaping policies that would alter history. He fought battles in his own thought, wrestling with depression that threatened to consume him. Bricklaying helped him win the quiet ones, the daily struggles that received no headline, but made everything else possible. In the end, Churchill's legacy includes not just his speeches and writings and wartime leadership, but also a series of modest brick walls in a Kent garden. They stand as a reminder that sometimes the most important work we do is the work that keeps us steady, the work that demands our hands and quiets our minds, the work that builds, brick by brick, something solid when everything else feels uncertain. 2,000 words and 200 brick a day, both mattered, both endured. Hashtag history talk, hashtag animation, hashtag story time, hashtag history.